and now he will deliver the line given to him by Judge Filosa.
Something might happen here, and if it does, so what?
How's it going, guys? I'm Bagel the Bat, and I'm currently obsessed with terrible game shows that nobody remembers or cares about. Yes, I know this is a really specific topic. Don't worry, I'll explain how we got here. Back during the peak of the pandemic, my husband and I started going on fishing trips to get out of our cramped apartment. During one of these trips, we stayed at a hotel and ended up watching basic cable for the first time in roughly 10 years. And somehow, the series that captured my attention and my soul was a bizarre little game show called Mental Samurai. I know, it's an absolutely awful title. Don't worry, the gameplay is somehow even worse.
Remember when your mother told you that you didn't have to worry about being perfect? She was lying. She was lying.
Rob Lowe hosts Mental Samurai, premieres tomorrow on Fox.
Yeah, this is a real show. Back then, I assumed I was having some kind of illness-induced hallucination, as was the style at the time. But yeah, it's literally just people being strapped to this weird robotic arm and answering lame trivia questions. What? Like, who would want to watch this? Fox as a network is no stranger to putting bad TV shows on the air, but this one is a whole new level of weird. How exactly did this get made in the first place? What finally brought it to an end? And for the love of God, why is there a giant robotic arm in this? Let's get into it as we discuss the worst game show I've ever seen. This is Mental Samurai. Mental Samurai originally premiered on March 19th, 2019 as the newest primetime game show for the Fox network. The gameplay was referred to as the ultimate obstacle course for the mind. And that means essentially nothing, but it translates into a contestant having 5 minutes to answer 10 questions. These questions are divided up into 4 different categories: puzzles, knowledge, memory, and sequence. Yeah, they give them fancy names, but when you're watching the show itself, the difficulty is mostly what you'd find on the back of a kid's cereal box.
Identify the piece that completes this puzzle.
There, not letter A, not B, there's a leg right there. Okay, I'm gonna go with C, lock it in.
Correct.
Great job. It's a quick $1,000.
I don't know what it is, but there's so many things that seem off about this show. From the vibes, to the hosts, to the weird staging, not to mention that the seating areas for the audience feel more like a surgery operating theater from the 1800s. Everything in this feels wrong. It's almost like they mounted a panopticon to a disco ball and just called it a day. The real element that throws things off the rails is how the game is played. On that note, let's talk about Ava. Engineered by a German technology company called BEC Robotics, Ava is the literal centerpiece for Mental Samurai. She has a name to get her out of the uncanny valley of being absolutely f***ing terrifying, but it really doesn't help much. She's remotely operated off-screen, so get used to hearing contestants screaming "whoa" all the time in between questions. And of course, the challenge aspect in this game show comes from the contestants waiting for the blood to rush back into their heads to answer correctly. The producers decided to give people whiplash to impact their response time, which is definitely a choice, but it's one that really baffles me. Most of the padding in this show comes from a series of lengthy and uncomfortable interviews with contestants. There are regular folks like Ron, an actual samurai who hates robots and wants to stop their uprising by any means necessary, even if he has to solve trivia questions.
It's not just that I want to win, I want to see Ava lose.
But I personally got a lot of secondhand embarrassment for this lady in particular. Nothing against her or Ron, obviously, but her whole backstory of being a gamer seems forced by the producers.
Winning this, to me, is pretty important because it shows that women gamers have what it takes to be the mental samurai.
And every single time Rob Lowe says gamer, it feels like a microaggression.
Hello, Marissa.
Hi.
So you're a gamer.
I am.
There's also this lever contestants have to pull when stating their answer to lock it in.
Lock it in.
Lock it in.
Lock it in.
That's the catchphrase they went with to make the show seem more engaging than it actually is. And because most of the questions are insultingly easy, it feels more condescending than anything else. Personally, I'm not too crazy about Rob Lowe as the host either. Despite his efforts, he's no Bob Barker. Rob lacks the warmth and authenticity needed from a host while talking to contestants. Instead, his interactions with them feel aloof and oddly judgmental.
It's very easy to sit at home and answer along with your favorite quiz show on a couch. Not so easy when you're pulling a couple of G's.
Probably because he's physically looking down on them from this weird platform thingy. However, the real draw for this show was the prize money. If you could make it all the way through both rounds without getting a single question wrong, the total prize was $100,000. It's a solid amount to compete for, not as flashy or high stakes as Deal or No Deal, but definitely enough to take care of some student loan payments. So what was the major issue here? The real problem with Mental Samurai is that it's incredibly boring and nobody liked it. The view counts on Fox's official YouTube channel definitely reflect this too. Nobody at the network knew how to sell this thing to audiences, because once you get used to the robot gimmick in episode 1, you've pretty much seen the entire show. Oddly enough, I was also watching Neon Genesis Evangelion for the first time during the same time period. Yep, my mental health was great back then, why do you ask? I'm not saying that there are actual parallels between Mental Samurai and Evangelion, or even that Rob Lowe might be a huge Ava fan behind the scenes. Not gonna lie though, some of it does feel very coincidental. And of course, deep down, I want it to be true because it would be absolutely hilarious. Either way, daydreaming about my favorite sad Freudian mecha anime was the only thing getting me through rewatching this absolutely god-awful show. Rob, you have to get into Ava, otherwise Ray will have to do it again. So after season 1 ended in a whimper with diminishing viewers every week, they'd need to do something drastic to draw them back in. That's right, they'd introduce a new pilot, Asuka. They would add an additional player to make the game more competitive. I wish Asuka was here. That would make this watchable. This time, 2 players would aim to get a higher score against their opponent to progress further into the game. Additionally, they would have to challenge the winner from the previous week's episode during the second round to win the Circle of Samurai. They also opted to change the shooting locations from California to Portugal. This seemed insane to me at first, but apparently it is so expensive to shoot in LA that it was cheaper in the long run to move the entire production overseas.
Nothing shoots in Los Angeles. Nothing.
It's cheaper to bring 100 American people to Ireland than to walk across the lot at Fox. Past the sound stages and do it there.
Crazy.
To make matters worse, Season 2 was released during the heart of the pandemic in early summer 2021. We can clearly see there's no audience, and yeah, this made sense due to the health restrictions they had to work with, but it still feels pretty creepy. There's cheers and laughter being played in an otherwise completely barren sound studio for a TV show that doesn't deserve it. Oddly enough, Mental Samurai is probably the most pandemic-friendly game show ever made. Not by design, obviously, but it did kinda work, at least with the way the sets and the staging were designed. Pretty much everything was already 6 feet apart to accommodate Ava's huge movement radius. But ultimately, this didn't make a difference.
It don't matter. None of this matters.
Mental Samurai was quietly shelved after airing its final episode on July 20th, 2021. So that's how the initial show ended, but where did things go so wrong? And did anything eventually happen with it afterwards? From the start, Mental Samurai should have been a slam dunk for Fox. It was created by Arthur Smith and Mike Darnell, 2 highly profitable game show producers. Smith was the creative producer behind shows like American Ninja Warrior, Trading Spaces, and Kitchen Nightmares, just to name a few. Meanwhile, Darnell was best known for working on crowd pleasers like American Idol, The Bachelor, So You Think You Can Dance, and Are You Smarter Than a 5th Grader? They're all recognizable names with the audience fanfare to prove it, so they both had a track record that would have made it much easier to sell something new to a network. But what exactly went wrong here? To me, I think things went south with the inclusion of a third producer, Rob Lowe.
Woo! How the tables have turned.
Your game starts in 3, 2, 1.
Yeah!
And no, I'm not trying to pick on him, I promise, but I do think that this was absolutely a case of too many cooks in the kitchen. I honestly had trouble finding any substantial amount of press for his involvement in Mental Samurai, except for this one article I found in Variety. In it, Lowe states he's been a game show fan for a while and wanted to produce his own version, stating, "When I was 15, I won big on the $10,000 pyramid. I've loved mental competition shows ever since. For me, Mental Samurai is addicting. Every time you play, you think, this time I'm gonna win. But this very simple game is almost impossible to crack. Also, as a producer, I'm excited to get into this new arena." And I want to make something clear, I'm not inherently against an actor venturing into a new TV format. That's fair enough that he wants to branch out, I totally get that. But there's a difference between producing a standard TV show, which can be anchored to star power, versus producing a game show, which is reliant on the games being interesting enough to sell ad space. One doesn't always translate to the other. Personally, I think this all starts with the importance of having a catchy title. It's something we take for granted because game shows can be a dime a dozen and most don't make it past one season. But with many long-lasting game shows, less is more, and if they find a formula that works, it can quickly become a staple of the genre. So to me, the best game shows that are popular and have the most staying power all tend to do the same thing. The title of the show clearly explains how the game is played. The Price is Right is a classic example of this concept. Contestants have to guess the retail price of common household items to win prizes, trips, and money. That pricing element ties together most of the mini-games they use in the show.
Aaron, what do you bid on that? $1,200 bucks! $1,200 bucks!
Is there a lot of obvious and gratuitous product placement? Oh, absolutely. But it's still fun. It makes sense within the game, too. Contestants have to rely on their own shopping experiences to answer correctly. Another example is Family Feud. Two families compete against each other by guessing the top answers from a probably fake survey to win cash and prizes. I'll be honest though, I mostly just associate Family Feud as the closest thing we'll get to seeing Purgatory, starring Steve Harvey. I really don't know what it is about the show, but I get the overwhelming impression that he's not allowed to leave and hates that it still exists because people won't stop applying to be on it. But yeah, even if the titles are a little goofy, they still make sense. And more importantly, they're equally approachable to new viewers and longtime fans. You might not have thought about how important a title can be, but your brain did. With all this in mind, that's why the title for Mental Samurai feels incredibly vague and nonsensical. It's meant to be intriguing, but it's not informative in the slightest. Like, what do you picture in your head with a title like that? For me, I think of something like the lightsaber fights in Star Wars, with the Force being used in combat, maybe. Calling it Mental Samurai really says nothing about how the game works, how to win, or even the style of gameplay involved. It feels like a word salad bait and switch. Despite all this, one of the weirdest things I noticed during my research was the oddly toxic user reviews on IMDb of all places. It's a combination of review bombing and praise that I haven't seen from any other show like it. I didn't really think enough people watched the show to have that kind of infighting thing going on, but yeah, there's not a ton of long-lasting appeal here in my opinion. So did anything else happen with Mental Samurai after that? Kinda? There were 4 international spin-offs, with 3 of them airing around roughly the same time. Those versions were done in the Middle East, Finland, Portugal, and Spain, respectively. And oddly enough, the only version to last more than 1 season was Portugal, airing for a total of 4 seasons with 33 episodes. Okay, so how is Ava doing after the cancellation? She's just trying to focus on her own self-care right now. And honestly, yeah, same here, girl. I get it. It's not great out here right now. Thankfully, it seemed like Rob took on the failure of Mental Samurai and really learned something from it. The next game show he got involved with is called The Floor, an American spin-off of a popular Dutch game show. But if Mental Samurai was pandemic-friendly, The Floor is a super spreader's delight.
81 players will go head-to-head in a trivia duel.
Cereal. Bugs. Horror movies.
It's an adult spin on The Floor is Lava with tons of trivia questions, substantially more prize money, and dozens of contestants involved. The scale for everything is ridiculous too. Each shot is packed to the point of feeling cluttered compared to feeling borderline empty on something like Mental Samurai. Notably, Rob Lowe is one of 8 producers involved, along with a whopping 12 executive producers somehow. That honestly seems like overkill to me, but the important thing is that The Floor has gotten consistently better ratings for Fox and was just recently renewed for seasons 4 and 5. After the failure of Mental Samurai, they wouldn't risk having too many cooks in the kitchen again. Instead, they just hire a catering service to appeal to as many people as possible. So from that, I see both Evangelion and Mental Samurai as troubled passion projects for their respective creators. 2 shows with personal elements involved that experience completely opposite levels of success. I love Evangelion because it's a fantastic anime with mature themes and really dope-ass robots, but I hate how often I identify with the negative traits of the characters. I hate Mental Samurai for being a badly conceived game show from day one, but I still remember it because I love breaking apart how bad the gameplay is and how messy its creation was. So with all this in mind, I think they can both challenge the limits of how entertainment of high and low quality can impact a person, for good and for ill. Thank you so much for checking out my videos, guys. I'm so sorry this one took forever to get out. I really hate leaving weird lags and uploads like this, but life got in the way, and yeah. I'm hoping I'm a lot better about it going forward. So just expect my next video to have much more economical editing. I'll leave it at that. I'm not where I want to be with editing abilities or speed right now, which is, I think, pretty obvious, but I'm really going to keep trying at it, so I really appreciate your patience all the same. But all that being said, do you have any weird fever dream shows you remember watching? And if so, what are they? Please let me know in the comments down below because I want to know. But either way, I'll talk to you all next time. Thanks. Bye.